Well, Razorback fans, we had a chance to hear from the new general manager, Remy Cofield, for the first time ever, and yeah, it was something. So let's break it down on today's Locked On Razorbacks podcast.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Nabors. I am also the host of Inside Arkansas Live, which you can catch every weekday starting at noon on Inside Arkansas and InsideArkansas.com. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Hope everybody's having a wonderful Friday. You finally made it to the weekend. Exciting times, right? Exciting times to get ready for all the great things that have been going on heading into the weekend. And also a huge shout out to Adu Thero getting drafted by the Lakers last night. That's awesome. You know, I was thinking about all the different players that have gotten drafted by Arkansas or from Arkansas, and always about going to a good franchise. Well, the Lakers, I think, are definitely a good franchise. So congrats to him. I can't wait to see what he becomes, and as a good place to start it up and develop and everything like that. So definitely wanted to give him a shout out. But today on the show, on the podcast, we are going to really dive into the press conference that was given by Remy Cofield, the new GM that was hired at Arkansas over 3 months ago. Now, a lot of you may have listened to my podcast yesterday when I was talking about the things I wanted to see and hear and what I wanted to know about the situation that Remy Cofield finds himself in. I was really looking forward to this press conference because I felt like it was going to be something that could really invigorate and energize a lot of Razorback fans who are very suspect on the current situation of NIL, the current situation of revenue sharing, especially dealing on the football side of things where it just doesn't feel like they have money. They just don't have it. So I was really fascinated to hear what his role is going to be, what he's going to do, how he's going to get players in, all of these different things. And, I just hate doing this, man. I just hate being negative. I really do. And it just was not what I was wanting. Selfishly, I was wanting something that was going to open my eyes a little bit and get me to understand a whole lot more of what his role is going to be, of what the situation Arkansas finds themselves in. But either way, it just really wasn't what I thought it was going to be. So for those of you who may not know, he is officially the Deputy Athletics Director and General Manager of Razorback Athletics. He was hired the announcement came on March 24th. He officially joined the Razorbacks April 1st, and we hadn't heard from him since until yesterday. So we're going to play a few clips, and I may pause in the middle of it because there is some things that really stood out to me where I'm like, okay, we need to address this. But we'll start with the role. Like, what is it that you do here? Kind of like from Office Space. What is it that you do here? Well, he was asked this question in the press conference, and here was his response.
I know this might be a difficult question, but like the percentage or what you think about your own role, how much of it is maybe scouting, evaluation, just conversation? Like, how do you kind of define your role right now and what you do on maybe a day-to-day basis?
I think it's just like pick up the pieces where things need to be picked up. I said to Hunter, when we initially got on with this and started working and things, it's like I just want to help people out. Coaching staff needs something. They need advice on this particular rule that we're looking at. Like, call us up. Let's figure it out. If you want to talk about roster, players, all that stuff, you need a connection to somebody that I may have. Let's figure it out. So I think in my role, it's just trying to be a connector in a lot of ways, making sure every staff has what they need from a rev share standpoint, but also is brought up to speed on the new rules that are coming through that we're all kind of learning right now. We don't have a lot of answers to, but we're trying to get ahead of it and be proactive in that space.
Okay, so I don't necessarily have any major problems with that response other than the fact that that's not what I was under the impression of what the GM was going to do. I thought the GM was going to be a GM. It seems like the way that he was putting it, though, is that his role was going to be more about connections and being a middleman and being compliance and trying to figure out what you can and can't do. How can you handle certain things? And, hey, I'm here for if you need some advice or need some help. I just, in my mind, had it to where it was going to be, hey, I'm going in and the coaches are saying, hey, we want this player or we need this player. This is the player we're looking at. He's really interested, but we got to talk to his agent. So talk to his agent and get it done. And then Remy goes in and is like, all right, let's talk about it. He knows in his mind how much he can spend. He knows in his mind how much he can get away with and how valuable it is, and talks and kind of be the middleman with the coach and the agents and everything. Negotiate, get a deal done, signed, sealed, delivered, boom, there it is. That was my impression of what the main thing was going to be. Because I felt like if you're getting someone who's just doing compliance and connections and everything like that, I feel like that's probably why you have a compliance department. And maybe that's all encompassing, but I just feel like there was an opportunity here to where this guy's job is strictly just dealing with the 400 student athletes that are currently on campus, as well as dealing with the rest of the potential players that are coming in. So it just really, I don't know. I just didn't really like how it was so generic. It was a very generic thing of being, well, I'll be here if they need me. I'm just be here to help. It's like, no, I mean, I get it. You're here to help. And, I'm sure they're going to ask you for things and they need, but it's like, I want you to be the dog. I want you to be that wolf. I want you to be that person out there wheeling and dealing and smiling and dialing and going after it and getting connections and making those deals happen, signing those contracts and getting those players to be like, all right, here you go. Boom, boom, boom. There you go. Let's go. That's what I was really anticipating. But either way, that was one of the things that really stood out in the first part of it. But we do know, though, that there will be an approach of how you get players. You're going to have to find ways to get players. Simple as that. And he was also asked about that specifically and how they go about making sure that Arkansas, which hasn't done a great job in their revenue and in their NIL, like, how does this change it? How does the revenue share change it? And how is he going to change it? Here's his response.
I think we got to just find the right players, right? I think overall, when you're competing with money, the money is the money. I think at the end of the day, we got to get the right people for Arkansas. I think that's the biggest thing.
Okay, I want to stop it right there. The money is the money. Yeah, it is the money, but it's a very big, important thing. But getting the players that want to be at Arkansas or getting the right fit for Arkansas, to me, the right fit is the best players. Like that's the right fit. And I feel like this was an opportunity to where Remy could have just come out and said, hey, we're going to deal with it in the best way possible. We're going to make sure that we get the best players for the value and making sure that we're, putting together a roster that really is going to compete at the highest level. But in saying that, hey, the money's the money, but we want to get people that fit Arkansas. No, I want to get the best because the best will always fit no matter what. I want you to get the best. And so it was an interesting comment for him to start off that way and saying how they change and how they get the players and everything, but kind of an interesting start to it.
Fan base wants us to be extremely competitive. I'm extremely competitive. All of our coaches are extremely competitive. We're going to get the right players for Arkansas. That's the most important for us. We'll compete with some of the money issues that are going to be out there. I think a lot of the cap stuff that we're going to see going forward is going to level it out a little bit more so that we can compete from a money standpoint. But I think it starts with the players. We got to get the right players for us.
Okay, so again, I get what he's saying. But it's more of like, we're going to level it out, and we're hoping that this whole thing with revenue share levels it out, but we got to just focus on getting the right players for Arkansas. It's like, well, yeah, okay, but the deal is getting the right players, the best players to fit your roster to make it work, which he also, in a roundabout way, kind of admitted just what we kind of all thought, that there was a problem with the NIL and to the revenue sharing and everything that Arkansas had been dealing with here recently. And so it was a problem, and it has been a problem. And I still believe that there should be some sort of approach where it's just an aggressive nature. It's an aggressive, we're going out and we're doing this, because it's all about revenue sharing. And I get it. It's $20.5 million. The percentages we'll talk about, but it's also just a matter of, having somebody ready to roll and to get after it. one clip that I meant to put up here, but I didn't. But he also went on to say, and be asked about his staff. Well, his staff, well, it's not really made at all. Like that was a little bit concerning to me. So he's been here for 3 months. There's no staff that's under him. And on top of that, it's also not really close to what the staff needs to look like. At least he didn't portray that. So is it going to be assistant GMs? Is it going to be people for each sport? Don't know. I get it, though. I get that there's timing on everything because of the laws that had to be passed and legislature that had to be passed. You had to wait on a lot of these things. But it just seems like, okay, for 3 months, what has been the thing? Has it been just getting to know coaches and players? Has it been getting in, your feet wet and moving in? Has it been just waiting on what is going to happen this summer when revenue share pops up and what that all is going to look like? Is it have anything to do with Arkansas Edge and then the money from that and with the foundation? Like, what has been really the 3 months that you've been here? What has that been about? Because again, it just seems like there's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of mystery of learning on the job. Don't really know specifics of what I'm doing or what my priority is. But this is kind of what we're looking at. And it just really wasn't what I'm expecting. And maybe I'm wrong about it. Like maybe I'm the one that is an idiot that completely misinterpreted what I felt like a general manager should be at Arkansas. Very possible. But I was really hoping that when he talked about his role and talked about getting players, there was going to be a swagger to it and a confidence to it of, yeah, this is what I'm doing. This is what we're going to be doing. This is the type of players that we're going to be getting, not just the fit, but we're getting the best. We're going to go out, we're going to get players and get people here that can win a national championship in every sport. I'm about perception. I'm about confidence. I'm about everything that can be thrown there and through a lens of something. And we just didn't get it. A couple more things that we're going to play some clips on and talk about when it comes to the press conference from Remy Cofield dealing with the recruiting pitch to get kids to Arkansas. I wasn't a fan of this, but we'll talk about that here in a second. So stay with us here on Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, Razorback fans, have you ever decided at the last minute to head to a ball game with friends or family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize that you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Game Time comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group to come with you. Game Time makes that possible. Game Time makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app actually drop closer to the time you get to the first pitch, and they've got an incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that makes everything non-worrisome. It takes the worry out of buying everything. So check it out today, because the best thing about it is Game Time will have last-minute tickets and zone deals for big things like 10% off exclusive zone deals for FIFA Cup World Championships. Like if you're into that, if that's what you want to be at, you can get those great deals for you as well. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, so moving on into the next segment of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Okay, so this is pretty fascinating once again to me, dealing with the GM, the new GM for the Razorbacks, Remy Cofield. He was asked a very upfront question of players that you're looking at, whether it's the portal, whether it's high school, whatever. What is the recruiting pitch? What's the pitch that you give to all the players that you're dealing with on why they need to come to Arkansas? And I'll be honest, this one I wasn't a fan of. Take a listen.
Come to Arkansas. You'll figure it out once you get here. I think being in Boston, I've always been a city kid. I grew up in Boston, went to Philadelphia, went back to Boston, been there the last 14 years. And so coming down here, I used to come down here to watch, Muss's pro days and things like that. And over the last 5 years, I was doing the SEC. Primarily, that was a lot of what I was doing. And you come down here and, the 10-minute drive from the airport is like, cows and chickens and things like that.
Okay. I know that we'll finish the clip, but man, that just kind of just rubs me the wrong way. The first answer being, come to Arkansas and you'll see what happens. Like, that's the recruiting pitch. Come to Arkansas. Okay. Count me in. You talked me into it. It's like, all right. I that would have been a great time to, when you're asking a question about your recruiting pitch, not saying in the press conference you got to go through each and every individual point, every player's different and everything, but it could have been saying, hey, well, if you want to compete at the highest level, you come to Arkansas. If you want to go up against the best in the SEC, you come to Arkansas. If you want to compete for a national championship, you come to Arkansas. Like, if you want to get taken care of, if you want to be, beloved by all fans, just something like that. But just come to Arkansas and you'll see. Yeah, I don't know about that one. Don't know about that one. And then throwing into the mix of the cows and chickens thing, it just kind of shows him, as much as anybody else that's ever come here, that they're always like, just a bunch of hillbillies and have no idea what's going on because the airport has nothing but that. But I mean, he goes on to clarify a little bit more what he says, but man, it just always rubs me the wrong way when people say that about Arkansas. Like, that's the first thing that they think of is just, well, at the airport, cows and chickens were everywhere.
And so I was, I came down here with my wife, and, I tried to tell her, like, have an open mind, we'll figure this thing out.
Okay, so that also tells me that his wife was not happy about the job move. Like, maybe I'm looking too much into it, but that little phrase right there, that little comment tells me he's like, all right, have an open mind, as in, like, she wasn't sure about it. She was doubting it. She was like, we're going from Boston to Fayetteville, Arkansas. There was a lot of apprehension in the initial taking of this job and coming down here. So that's okay. I'm not saying it's a problem, but it kind of shows you some of the challenges that he may have been going through when taking this job and making this move to this type of level down here in Fayetteville.
But I think both of us, when we got down here, we started going out, we started meeting the people. It's a sense of you just don't want to leave. And I think there's a lot of people that live here that are coming from other places. I'm talking about like LA and Chicago and Philadelphia, all these different places, bigger cities. They come down here and they don't want to leave. And so I think that's a testament to what Arkansas is. It's not just about the big businesses that are here, which is a beautiful thing to have on top of it. It's just about the culture that's down here that's being built out. And if you're not a part of it, you're missing out. You really are.
Okay, so I, again, have no issue with the last part of that when he's talking about the approach of what you get with coming in here and people being from all over the place, because it is true. I mean, Fayetteville, at least Northwest Arkansas specifically, has a lot of people from all over the place. But, having it be the people and all that, which, again, that's great for him. But the question was about the recruiting pitch. And if you're a big-time college athlete, odds are, especially if you're a transfer, you're going to be here for 1 or 2 years. Knowing the people is not necessarily going to be something you do more often than not. Now, it's a great thing if you do. It's a great thing if you get involved. Totally. But to me, the recruiting pitch still needs to be going back to what you're going to be doing athletically, what you're going to be doing in the facility, what you're going to be doing on the field, on the court, the successes that you're going to be having alongside with it. That's the most important thing. So I am about taking that and, maybe being overly critical of it. That's fine if you guys want to accuse me of it. But I wanted to hear more about the confidence that he has with the actual athletic program and the successes that'll come along with it. But as I've talked about, there seems to be inside of the program, and I think it's maybe just more so football, but there just comes across that there's just this woe is me, golly gee, we can't win. We're just a victim of not being able to compete because we're a little Arkansas. There is just an oozing of feeling of that. And I hate it. I absolutely hate it. And I wish that it would change. But that type of comment where, again, the question being asked about the recruiting pitch, and you go on to talk about come to Arkansas and you'll see, talk about when I first got the job, my wife was not very sure and apprehensive. And then I was like, hey, let's just give it a chance. And we saw a bunch of cows and chickens. And then, hey, the people are great because they're not from, like, it was almost like that thing too, where he's talking about, well, the people here, it's great because of people from bigger cities that came here. It's not about the people that have been here forever, but not like a native like me or not native like you, a lot of Razorback fans. Like, well, businesses are great too, but it's about the people that came from everywhere else and they just don't want to leave. So I don't know. I just didn't like that answer. Maybe I'm being overly critical. Maybe I'm just in a bad mood, but it just rubbed me the wrong way. We'll talk about one of his final comments in dealing with the percentages and what was, to me, one of the most fascinating things that he had to say. But we'll get to that, so stay with us here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, so final segment here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Again, talking about Remy Cofield and his press conference that he had. This final clip, I want to talk about the percentages. I know we talked about having tough combos with players and coaches and everything, but I also want to talk about the percentages of distribution, because we know with revenue sharing, as was mentioned, $20.5 million. It can be distributed however universities want it to, but what's it going to look like? Like, what's the official percentages going to be? Well, he was also asked about that in his press conference yesterday.
Non-revenue / Olympic sports are certainly a part of it, but how does the department approach allocating money to each sport, percentages?
Yeah, we can't talk about percentages and how we allocate those funds currently, but I do know that we will be making sure that all of our sports teams have a way to compete at a high enough level. We want to make sure that the teams that are participating in our rev share at a high level, that they have what they need as well. But even if our other teams that are not participating in rev share, we're going to do everything we possibly can to make sure they're a part of a structure that helps them get the players that they want and what they need to be on a competitive level. So, we're working through all that. I think there's no easy explanation for all of this stuff. We're just trying to figure out the best course of action for our team and our university.
Okay, so I had no problem with that answer. I felt like that him saying we're going to support all the programs that we can is the right answer. I think that with revenue sharing being so up in the air and still going through the processes of it becoming official, I think that that's a safe bet. But here's the thing, from my understanding and from what my sources have told me, I mean, it's going to be pretty much set up distribution as far as what would be anyway of revenue sharing. Essentially, where you're talking about the 70-20-10. 70% of the revenue sharing will be going towards the football program. 20% will be going towards the basketball program and 10% towards the baseball program for the revenue generating sports. And then the 70% that's going to football, they're also going to have the NIL side of things too, built upon that, and trying to make it to where it kind of goes out in its own way. So, and it's unfortunate because, again, I think my theory, this is just my theory, I think the reason that he did not say anything about the percentages is because of how it would come across if he was like, yeah, we're just doing football, basketball, baseball, and that's it. I think that there may be some NIL deals that will be available for other players from other sports. I think that maybe you'll have some NIL from local businesses or boosters or anything like that that'll help them out for those particular things. But at the end of the day, it's about the revenue generating sports, and football is the biggest one, and it's the one that apparently needs the most help. So I think that that's a fine answer, and I think that that's the right approach to have. It's just a matter of, can you execute it? Do you believe in Sam Pittman? Do you believe in the current setup? Do you believe in everything? Do you believe in all of these things that's reportedly going to make your program better? I don't know. And I'll end it on this, folks. I know we talked about my criticisms, and I tried to be looking at good and bad. I try to put it into perspective and be open-minded about what this was. but I still was just not a fan of that. It just did not come across the way I needed it to. And I think fans needed it to. Fans needed it to be where, hey, listen, we've heard from Pittman. You know, we know Cal's on a whole nother level. Baseball just going with Dave and everything. We never hear from Yurichek. I mean, he's just out there hanging out. But there needed to be somebody, a new voice, to be able to provide an energy, an absolute energy this summer to be like, hey, I know that fans haven't been happy with this and this and this and the way things have gone in NIL and finances, but don't worry, I'm here to help. I'm here to get it done. I'm here to change the game for everybody. They brought me in for this gig. I'm going to dominate it. And I'm going to show everybody why Arkansas can compete at a national championship level. And I didn't get that vibe at all. Did not get that vibe. Very disappointed with the overall takeaway from it. And that's nothing personal against Remy Cofield. That's just a matter of what I was wanting. It's my own personal opinion. And I really, really hope that this gets better. I really hope it does. But from what I've understood, there's been a lot of layoffs inside the athletic department. There's been a lot of cuts and people with jobs to try to, whether it's dissolving positions or just somebody was making too much money and they let somebody go to hire somebody cheaper, whatever it is. But there's no doubt that financially speaking, Arkansas and the University of Arkansas athletic department has been in a bind. They have not prepared well enough for this revenue sharing. They have not handled themselves in a way to where they can help themselves by, instead of going to and having good, strong relationships with your biggest donors and your biggest boosters and being able to ask them and have a confidence in them to provide things. Instead of having those strong relationships, what you've done is you've just raised ticket prices on everybody. You raised donation levels. You have cut cost at every single turn and at every single corner. And you have made mistakes with the Arkansas Edge and signing on Blueprint Sports. So, that being said, I'm a little bit apprehensive of this thing working out. I hope it does. I hope it's awesome. I hope Remy Cofield kills it and does such a phenomenal job that we're all blown away by the change and everything. But considering how things have gone when it came to the business decisions, and especially dealing with revenue sharing and NIL, I'm just not very confident. Not very confident. But we'll see. Time will tell. But I appreciate each and every one of you listening in and watching into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or on Google Play. You can also get after me on Twitter at John Nabors Show for any questions, comments, concerns that you may have. Keep it going from there. Same podcast time, same podcast channel tomorrow afternoon. Have a great day, everybody. See you then.